Good morning, aviators. It's been a little bit since I posted, been a little busy, but I've been messing with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 since Christmas. And I feel like I have some tips and tricks on setting up the system itself, as well as setting up some flight controls, because some of it is kind of quirky. In fact, some of it's a little buggy. I think it needs to be fixed. Some of the default settings are really, really horrible. So hopefully this will help you get a better experience right from the get-go. So this right here, what we're on, is the main page after you link your Microsoft account. You'll have to do that first, start up. You'll customize your player character, and then you'll be able to jump right in. Now how about the first training flights in here can take so long if you don't have the controls set up properly. So I'm going to show you how I have mine set up, and that eliminates a lot of the bugs. So starting right from general, right from graphics, some of this will vary depending on what your PC or your system is. This is what I have set up for now. Now, as a default, it's actually set up with DLSS. That is pretty bad. I don't know why that is. You want it on temporary anti-aliasing. That will eliminate blurring on the glass cockpit displays. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to read a lot of things, especially if they change quickly. So I have that set. I have the rendering scale set to 100 and the fidelity sharpening set to 100 as well. Haven't messed around too much with that. VSync, haven't messed around with. I have the low latency on, 100% monitor refresh rate, global rendering quality medium. That's just what I have set for mine. That's just my personal system. But the big one, TAA for anti-aliasing. Language, kind of self-explanatory. Sound, I have it turned down so you guys can hear me as I'm talking. Overall, the system is pretty loud, so just be aware of that. I haven't messed around with online yet. Camera, this is a big one, and it's bugged from how it's set up manually, especially with the cockpit camera. This is what I have set up right now. I might change around with the close camera versus wide angle. You want free look reset set to auto. That helps part of the problem. Head up mode, I haven't messed around too much with that. Height, I like mine slightly higher than what's defaulted. I have it set at 55. That gives me a realistic sight picture while flying. Don't care about the horizontal position right now. Zoom, 50, that's a good spot. Okay, here on, these are where some bugs are. So zoom speed, you gotta decrease it from 50 to around 30 or so. Free look speed, you need to decrease from 50 to about 40. Some people actually have to decrease it all the way down to 10. This one, I don't even know why this is an option, because all this does is cause drift. Whether you're using the X56 or whether you're using IR or VR, free look momentum is garbage. It just causes drift. You have to constantly reset it, and it's a pain in the butt. Set that to 0 immediately if that's the first thing you have to do in here. Camera shake you could turn off. I have it on. And then flashlight mode, auto. Everything is almost as default. I haven't run into any other problems, mostly because I don't use external camera. I haven't had to change anything with flight model. All I have is set to modern and realistic. Flight interface, I have these set on for missions just to help me score high, because how it sets up the GPS is kind of a little arbitrary. So I have those set up just to help me score missions and get progress quicker. I assure I'm going to turn them off soon. These are my settings for the cameras through the flight interface tab. And I haven't messed with options, and I haven't gone to legals and credits. Assistances. Okay. I have turned off the assisted rudder, yoke, trim, and the gliders tab, because I like it to be a little bit more realistic. I don't fly a helicopter, so I left those on. I don't have an assisted controller sensitivity or auto mixture. I think the other two were left off anyway, but I've turned off auto mixture, and I don't do gyro, so gyro drift. Actually, no. This actually has to do with resetting your heading indicator if you're flying analog at seam gauges. But you know, it's a real pain in the real life to reset that, so I'll actually leave that on. Visual assistance, I have the taxi ribbon on because sometimes for missions they give really weird taxi routes that can affect your score, so I leave that selected on. Realism, I leave it pretty realistic. I do not turn on the disable damage tabs. I leave on the icing. I turn off unlimited fuel. Turbulence, I actually have set to medium. The realistic is actually more than realistic. It's borderline moderate turbulence, so I'm just going to leave it at medium. G effect, I'm going to leave jet pilot. AI radio communications, I turn off because I like to do them. And I haven't messed around with flight plans too much, so I've leave this off for now. Okay, now going to controls. There are a lot of weird things when setting up controls, especially with the flight control services, and I'll show you that as we get into the throttle, as we start messing with flaps and things like that. So you could set whatever you want for your controls, whatever works for you. Like for instance, for keyboard, this was not defaulted for some reason, but toggle landing gear. For some reason, G was not selected as that item, and I don't know why, because every other flight sim in existence has that. Now, if you see a number here, that means there's other keys binded to that same, or other controls binded to that same key. So let's go ahead and search by input, click G again. Yeah, there's quite a bit, and most of this is garbage for right now, so I'm actually going to show you how to unbind these. All you do is hover over it, select the backslash key, perfect. So now when we click G, all we're doing is toggling that landing gear. There's a lot of bugs with these setting up keys, so that's why you have to do it. But if you have a joystick, or I have a T600 flight pack, so I have the joystick, throttle quadrant, and rudder. Now, if you're wondering why there were rudder pedals on this one as well, well, let me tell you why. If you have an adapter, a J adapter for the rudder pedals, you'll have your own separate tab for it. I do, because I did not realize when I bought it that there is a insert for the rudder pedals right in the, yep, right there, right in the front left quadrant of the throttle quadrant. So if you just have the rudder pedals, no adapter, which is perfectly acceptable, you plug it in there, you will do all your rudder adjustments through the throttle tab instead of the rudder. But I'm going to start with the joystick. Mine looks slightly different, but it's virtually the same thing. So let's show up how to set the primary flight controls. So you're going to go to Flight Control Surfaces, Primary Control Surfaces, and you're going to look for at least these two, aileron and elevator axis, and I also add an extra rudder axis in case I don't want to use the rudder pedals. Setting that up, let's say we don't have those binded. Start with rudder axis. You're going to click on it, it's scanning, twist your joystick side to side. What I'm doing is twisting it laterally. I'm not moving it sideways or forward and back. I'm just twisting the base of it. Then we want to adjust the axis of it a little bit, or in DCS it's called the axis adjustment, but it's the tweak action curve in this simulator. What you're wanting to do is set the sensitivity, the curve, if you would, to negative 0.05 for both the positive and negative. The neutral, you don't want to adjust because that just throws it off, and I don't fully understand why they include that. Dead zone, you're going to set to 0.05. That way, if you bump it slightly, it's not going to mess things up too much. And I don't mess with the extremity dead zone. But that's for the limit stops up. Like if you want to have no real control, or you want to be very, very, you have to put in a large input for on the joystick for a small control input in the game, that's what you would do, but I'm going to leave that to 0. Okay, that's how you set up a curve through the tweak action curve. Aileron axis. So what you would do for that, let's say stand by. Let's say we have that deselected. I'm going to click it. I'm going to move the joystick side to side laterally. That's the x-axis. It automatically detects. We got to go to the settings, tweak action curve. Same thing. I found about 0.05 for both, and 0.05 work pretty well. Click escape, it automatically saves. I'm not going to mess with the elevator axis. All it is pitch, so you move it forward and back. And repeat the same steps. I do have a couple buttons set up. These two right here. So this one, I can't remember what exact button it is, but it's okay. If you click search input and click that button, you're going to see what comes up. So if I click this, it's joystick button 2. That is the next pilot position, and I like that because I like to fly from the right seat sometimes, because when I was an instructor, I flew from the right seat, and then as a first officer now, I fly from the right seat as well. I believe that's joystick button 3. I'm going to search joystick button 4 here. That's the previous pilot position, so if I want to toggle back to the left seat or whatever seat there is, that's what I would do. Do I have anything set up for this? No, I've not. This other one, the hat switch, the trim hat switch, and I'll show you how to set up that from Flight Control Services. Control trimming services. Okay. So if you move the hat switch forward, that is nose down. So let's see, I'm going to deselect it. I click it. Push it forward. That's nose down trim now. And you repeat it with all 4 quadrants. So if you move it to the left, that's aileron trim left. If you move to the right, that'll be aileron trim right. And you got to click it and then do the action to bind it. And then elevator trim up, which is nose up, you're actually pulling back on the hat trim. It's indicated there. I don't do anything with the action curves there. In fact, you can't. You can't, which makes sense because it's a trim switch. And you can add additional actions if you want. As a basic setup, that's really all you need for the joystick. Now, if you just have the joystick, I would use this lever here as your throttle. That's what I used to do in the past. But let's go over to our throttle itself and type in throttle. Okay, what you're looking for here is the throttle axis, and you're going to move the thrust lever. You click it. I'm not going to redo it now, but you click it, then you move it forward and back. It'll automatically detect the L axis. I'm sorry, the Z axis. And then I don't do any. You do not want to curve with the throttle. Some other buttons that I have set up here on the throttle quadrant. You can't see it here, but one of these side buttons I use for flaps. So I'm just going to search by input. Actually, the best way to do this would be Flight Control Services, Secondary Control Services, and you're going to go to the flaps. I don't know why they do this, but there is like 12 different flap bindings you could do, and it took me forever to figure out which one it was that was correct. It's not the flap axis, it's not the retract flaps, it's not the extend flaps, because those go all or nothing, and you want to be able to have control of your flaps. So you want to bind something to increase flaps, and every time you click it, it increases the next notch of flaps for that airplane. So that's what you want. That's how you do it in real life. And then decrease flaps. There's the one with continuous. Don't do that. There is, let's see. There's flap axis. Don't mess with that. You want these two, increase flaps and increase flaps. I'm not flying airplanes with spoilers right now in the game, but I have it set up because I know I will. Increment spoilers will increase the spoilers and extend them one at a time. And then decrement spoilers retracts the spoilers. So when you get to the airline world and use them as speed brakes, that's what you'll want them binded for. Now the rudder pedal is the most interesting in terms of axes. There we go. This is what I use primarily for my rudder, and you want it, rudder axis, just the same thing. Rudder axis, you're going to push in the left and right side, and it'll automatically detect it. There is the aileron left, aileron right, rudder left, rudder right. You do not want to do those. They just mess things up royally. And then go to your tweak action curve and I set it to 0.6 with a dead zone of 0.5 because the rudders are a little bit more sensitive in the game compared to real life, so that's why I have it set as. Okay. Then toe brakes. We want to be able to do brakes, so I'll search brakes. Now, there's a lot of different brakes on here as well. Left brake, right brake, set of parking brakes, those are kind of different. But it can be kind of confusing which one you're looking for. You're looking for the axes. And what you're going to do is you're going to push in the toe brake, and that will set the left brake axis, and the right toe brake, that'll be the right brake axis. No action curve, but you're actually going to set inverted axis. That's very important for this one. Otherwise, you'll have to push them in for no brakes, and then when you release them, the brakes are fully applied, which is the exact opposite of real life. So you want to make sure set inverted axis is set for both. And then you can set other buttons as you want. I don't think there was any other ones other than this one. Increase cockpit view height. Oops. Let's camera height lockable. Yeah, so this one's double binded, so I'm going to deselect that one. I like to sit up a little bit more, get a realistic sight picture in the flight deck, so I have that one set as well. Other than that, what I just showed you, that's basic setup. You'll be good to go as long as you have those set up. Accessibility. I haven't really messed around with this. I'm pretty happy with it. Narration and audio. I gave it a try. It is one of the most annoying things in the world. Deselect that immediately and never turn it back on. If you turn it on and try going through settings or try going through things in your player profile, it is non-stop talking and you can't hear yourself think. So subtitles on if you want. Effects and animation, I have camera shake on and I have these set up. This helps especially with like selecting specific switches. I don't use VR, I use IR, so I don't even have that set up. Well, that's the basic setup. That helps avoid most of the glitches and takes away from the time-consuming task of figuring where do I need to bind, because it took me a while to figure out which one was the correct bind, because some of them have double labels, some of them are double binded. Even though it shouldn't be, it is. Hopefully that helps. I have started doing career missions, but I'm going to do them on the channel in the near future. You guys are more than welcome to follow along. Hopefully you learned something. A little bit about me. So I am an airline transport pilot. I fly for a major U.S. airline. I was an aerial survey pilot for 3 years, a flight instructor for 2 years. I was a charter pilot. I flew private jets, and I flew a King Air for 2 years. Mostly jets. I was type rated in the jets, and then I now fly a 737, so I messed around with that a little bit. There are some bugs with that I will have to work out before making a video of it, but I'm really excited to play this game. Hopefully you guys are as well, and I'll see you next time.